Have you ever noticed how people don't truly value you until you no longer try to prove yourself? As long as you chase, they ignore. As long as you give, they take. But the moment you step back, the moment you choose dignity over desperation, that's when they start to see what they've lost. It's like a dead battery, ignored when you think the charger is near, until the moment you truly need it and nothing works. Or think of a chair with a missing leg, dismissed as broken, but when there's no other seat in the room, suddenly everyone remembers its worth. That's how people act with value. They overlook it when it's present, but they beg for it when it's gone. Because here's the truth, people only value what they fear losing, and nothing awakens their respect faster than realizing you no longer beg for their approval. That's when the balance shifts. That's when they notice. That's when they regret. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes your greatest weapon, not through anger, not through revenge, but through calm strength. By living with self-respect, by setting boundaries, by choosing silence over argument, you force the world to treat you differently. So how do you reach the point where they beg for your presence, without a word, without chasing, without lowering yourself? Stay with me until the end, because the last strategy will make them value you in ways they never imagined. Let's begin. Number 1, respect yourself first. Let's talk about the foundation of all value in human relationships, self-respect. People mirror the way you treat yourself. If you constantly downplay your worth, tolerate disrespect, or allow others to cross your boundaries without consequence, you silently approve of your own mistreatment. The truth is, the way you carry yourself teaches others how to treat you. And when you demand respect through your actions, not just your words, people have no choice but to respond differently. Think about this. When someone knows they can insult you, dismiss you, or take advantage of you without pushback, they lose respect for you. Not because they're stronger or better, but because you've given them silent permission. To be valued, you must first value yourself. And that begins with recognizing that your time, energy, and presence are not unlimited resources. They are precious, and anyone who wishes to share in them must be worthy of them. Here's the reality. Self-respect is not arrogance, it's clarity. Arrogance says, I'm better than everyone else. Clarity says, I know my worth, and I will not lower it for anyone. And that difference changes everything. The person who respects themselves doesn't chase approval, doesn't beg for attention, and doesn't crumble when someone withdraws love or validation. Instead, they walk with a quiet power, the kind that cannot be manipulated. Let me share a story. A woman I once knew, we'll call her Sarah, was in a relationship where her partner constantly belittled her dreams. He would say things like, "That's unrealistic," or "You'll never pull that off." For years, Sarah tolerated it. She convinced herself it was just his personality, even though deep down, it chipped away at her spirit. One day, after reading a passage from Marcus Aurelius that said, "He who does not respect himself will not be respected by others," she realized the truth. She had been teaching her partner how to treat her by allowing the disrespect to continue. From that moment, she drew a line. She calmly said, "I will not accept being spoken to like this anymore." At first, her partner laughed it off, but Sarah didn't waver. She stopped justifying herself, stopped tolerating the mockery, and slowly, everything shifted. Either he adjusted his tone, or she walked away. And in doing so, she gained something far greater than his approval. She gained her dignity back. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom. Respect begins within. If you want people to value your presence, you must first stop undervaluing it yourself. Epictetus reminded us that no one can harm our inner freedom without our consent. The same applies here. No one can diminish your worth unless you let them. So how do you start? First, set clear boundaries. Decide what is and isn't acceptable in how people treat you. Second, enforce them quietly but firmly. You don't need to argue or beg, just act. Walk away from those who cross the line. And finally, remind yourself daily that self-respect is not negotiable. It is the foundation of every relationship, every opportunity, and every step forward. Because here's the truth. When you respect yourself first, you stop needing others to prove your worth. And paradoxically, that's when people begin to value you most. Number 2, stop chasing, start choosing. Let's talk about one of the hardest but most liberating shifts you can make, moving from chasing people to choosing people. When you chase someone, you hand them the power to decide your worth. Every text you double send, every favor you do without it being returned, every time you bend your boundaries just to keep someone around, you're silently teaching them that you'll tolerate less than what you deserve. And here's the irony. The more you run after people, the less they value you. Because in their eyes, if you are chasing, you must not be worth much. They assume real value never begs to be seen. Now flip it. Imagine stepping back. Imagine choosing instead of chasing. Suddenly, the power dynamic changes. Instead of proving yourself to them, you're observing whether they prove themselves to you. Instead of asking, do they like me? Do they want me? You begin to ask, do they deserve me? Do they add to my life? This shift isn't arrogance, it's dignity. And it's one of the deepest lessons Stoicism teaches us. Seneca once said, "Do not waste yourself in rejection. Hold to your dignity." In other words, every time you beg to be chosen, you give away the dignity that makes you valuable in the first place. Think of it like a marketplace. When something is too desperate to be sold, people bargain it down, assuming it's cheap. But when something has a clear value, people line up to earn it. That's how human relationships work too. If you're always chasing, you're signaling scarcity. If you're standing firm, choosing instead of chasing, you're signaling worth. And worth always draws more respect than desperation. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Sarah, spent years chasing after friends who never made her a priority. She would plan the gatherings, make the calls, remember the birthdays. But when her own life hit a rough patch, those same people were nowhere to be found. One day, she stopped. She stopped chasing texts. She stopped organizing plans. She stopped proving her loyalty to people who didn't value it. At first, the silence felt terrifying, but slowly she noticed something. The ones who truly cared stepped forward. They began calling her. They began showing up. And the rest, they faded away. Sarah realized she hadn't lost friends. She had lost the illusion of friendship. And in choosing instead of chasing, she built a circle of people who valued her naturally, not conditionally. So how do you practice this shift? First, resist the impulse to fill silence with pursuit. If someone withdraws, don't run after them. Let them show whether they care. Second, remind yourself that real connections don't require convincing. Love, respect, friendship, they flow naturally where they're genuine. Third, create standards, not exceptions. If someone consistently falls short, don't rewrite your rules to accommodate them. Instead, step back and let them rise to meet you or fall away. At the end of the day, chasing is rooted in fear. the fear of being alone, the fear of being forgotten. But choosing is rooted in strength, the strength to know that your value is not determined by who stays or who goes. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing, the right people will chase you. Because dignity is magnetic, and once you embody it, they won't just value you, they'll beg for the place you once begged to have. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, set boundaries without guilt. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood acts of self-respect, setting boundaries. Too many people confuse boundaries with rejection, harshness, or selfishness. They think that saying no makes them cruel, or that limiting access makes them cold. But boundaries are not walls, they're doors. And like any good door, they are meant to protect what's inside while still allowing access to those who truly deserve it. Without them, anyone can walk in, bring their chaos, and leave their footprints on your peace. With them, you decide who gets access, when, and on what terms. Here's the truth. People only treat you as well as the boundaries you enforce. If you allow disrespect, they'll disrespect you. If you permit constant intrusion, they'll intrude. But when you set clear limits without guilt, you silently communicate that your time, your energy, and your peace are valuable. Epictetus said it best. It is not harshness to protect your peace, it is wisdom. Protecting yourself is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's declaring that your inner life matters, that your dignity is not up for negotiation. Think of it like owning a house. You wouldn't leave the front door open for anyone to wander in. You lock it, you set rules, you decide who's welcome and who's not. That's not unkind, that's necessary. In the same way, your emotional home needs doors. Without them, you're not kind. You're vulnerable to being drained. And when you are constantly drained, you have nothing left to give, not even to those who love you. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Mark, always felt guilty saying no. His friends knew this, so they called him for everything, moving their furniture, covering shifts, lending money he couldn't spare. At first, he thought this made him a good friend. But over time, he noticed something. These people never showed up for him. They took, but they didn't give. And worse, he began to resent them, not because they asked, but because he never set limits. One day, exhausted and bitter, he finally said, "I can't." At first, they reacted with anger. They were used to his compliance. But then, something changed. The ones who truly valued him adjusted. They respected his boundaries. The others, who only valued his availability, faded away. Mark realized he hadn't lost friends. He had lost users. So how do you set boundaries without guilt? First, separate kindness from compliance. Saying no doesn't mean you're unkind. It means you're honest. Second, practice small boundaries. Start by protecting your time in small ways, like not answering calls during meals or not explaining every decision you make. Third, expect resistance. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will resist the most, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're finally choosing yourself. At the end of the day, guilt is the weapon others use to keep you accessible at their convenience. But peace is the reward you earn when you stop apologizing for protecting yourself. Boundaries are not selfish. They are the ultimate form of self-respect. And when you honor them, people will either rise to respect you too, or they'll leave. Either way, you win, because your peace is no longer negotiable. Number 4, become independent of approval. One of the greatest prisons a person can live in is the need for approval. The constant hunger for validation, The endless scanning of faces for signs of acceptance, the exhausting chase for praise. It wears down the soul more than rejection ever could. The truth is simple. The moment you stop needing their approval, you become free. And paradoxically, that freedom makes people notice your strength. Marcus Aurelius said, "You become powerful when you no longer seek approval." Power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from no longer being controlled by their opinions. Let's be honest. Approval feels good. Compliments feel good. Being recognized feels good. But when your worth depends on it, you've handed strangers the keys to your self-esteem. If they approve, you feel strong. If they don't, you feel weak. That's not strength. That's slavery. Freedom begins when you realize that someone else's opinion of you does not define you. You could be praised today and mocked tomorrow, but neither changes your true value. Think of a tree. It doesn't ask the wind for permission to grow. It doesn't bend its branches just to please the passing birds. It digs its roots deep, grows upward, and fulfills its nature. People might admire it, or they might ignore it, but the tree does not shrink or swell because of their approval. That is the kind of inner stability Stoicism teaches us to cultivate. Let me share a story. Sarah, a talented painter I once knew, almost gave up her art because her family didn't approve. They told her painting was a waste of time, that it wasn't practical, that she should choose something safer. For years, she listened. She painted less, she doubted herself, and she worked jobs she hated, all because she craved their acceptance. Then one day, exhausted, she asked herself a hard question. Whose life am I living? Mine or theirs? Slowly, she started painting again. At first, people criticized her choice. But as she grew bolder, as her work began to flourish, the same people who doubted her started praising her. What changed? Not the art, her independence. She no longer needed their approval, and that made them respect her more than ever. So how do you break free from the need for approval? First, realize its instability. People's opinions are fickle. What they admire today, they might condemn tomorrow. Second, define your own values. When you know what you stand for, you stop asking others to tell you who you are. Third, practice silence. You don't need to justify every choice, every step, every dream. Sometimes strength is not explaining, just acting. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop seeking approval, you actually gain respect. People may not always agree with you, but they cannot ignore your strength. Independence is magnetic. It makes others pause, rethink, and often admire what they once dismissed. At the end of the day, you are not here to be liked. You are here to live. Approval fades, respect endures. And when you detach from the need to be praised, you discover a freedom no one can take away. Because the truth is, they can withdraw their approval, but they can never withdraw your worth. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "Thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. Speak less. Do more. Let's talk about one of the most timeless truths of human behavior. Actions will always weigh more than words. You can talk endlessly about your principles, your strength, your loyalty, your plans. But talk, no matter how polished, can be doubted. Results cannot. A person may question your promises, but they cannot deny the reality you create. This is why Marcus Aurelius said, Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Words can be forgotten, twisted, or ignored, but action is undeniable. It stamps reality in a way nothing else can. Think about it. We live in a world where everyone is quick to declare who they are, what they stand for, what they intend to do. Social media is filled with voices shouting promises of greatness, values, and strength. But most of it is empty noise, like leaves rustling in the wind, making sound without substance. The Stoic knows this truth. It is better to quietly build than loudly declare. Let your results be the argument. Let your silence be your proof. I once knew a man named Daniel who constantly talked about how disciplined he was. He would boast about his early morning routines, his diet, his ambition, his business plans. Yet, when the time came to act, nothing followed. He missed deadlines, broke promises, and lived in the cycle of telling rather than doing. Meanwhile, his colleague, let's call her Emily, rarely spoke of her goals. She didn't announce her every move. She simply worked. A year later, while Daniel was still talking about what he would do, Emily had already built her own small company and created a life of independence. Her silence spoke louder than his words ever could. That is the essence of Stoic strength, quiet power rooted in action. When you speak less and do more, something changes in how others see you. First, you become unpredictable. People can argue with your words, but they cannot argue with your results. Second, you command respect without asking for it. No one respects endless promises. They respect achievement. Third, you protect your energy. Every time you declare loudly what you plan to do, you weaken your own drive because your mind feels it has already achieved something by saying it. The Stoics knew this trap well. Talking drains the spirit. Doing strengthens it. This doesn't mean you must live in silence or secrecy. It means your words should follow your actions, not precede them. Tell people what you have done, not what you plan to do. Show strength in your results, not in your declarations. That way, when you do speak, your words carry the weight of truth because they rest on a foundation of proof. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to convince people with words, they begin to believe in you through your actions. Quiet progress unsettles people more than loud claims. It makes them pay attention. And in time, they will value you, not because you shouted your worth, but because you embodied it. At the end of the day, remember this: words are like shadows, shifting, fading, unreliable. Action is like stone. It leaves a mark that cannot be denied. So stop wasting time arguing about who you are. Show them. Be it. And watch how silence, backed by results, makes them beg for your value. Number 6. Be calm when tested. Let's talk about one of the most difficult yet most powerful forms of strength: remaining calm when the world tries to provoke you. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can raise their voice, throw insults, or fight back in anger. But it takes true mastery to stay still in the storm, to let others reveal their weakness while you hold your composure. Seneca said, "He who angers you controls you. Do not hand them that power." And that is exactly the point. Anger is not strength, it is surrender. The one who can provoke you becomes your master. But when you remain calm, you remind them you belong only to yourself. Think about how often people test you, not with open attacks, but with subtle jabs. They question your worth in public. They laugh at your silence. They try to push your buttons just to see you break. This is not about them seeking truth. It is about them seeking control. They want proof that they can make you move when they wish. They want to see you stumble. And the moment you explode, you confirm their power. But when you remain calm, when you smile instead of snapping, you send a silent message that shakes them more than any insult ever could. You do not own me. I remember a man named Jacob who worked in a tense corporate office. His manager often belittled him during meetings, throwing harsh words to see how he'd react. Others argued back, raising their voices, losing credibility as they showed emotion. But Jacob would sit still, nod slightly, and then calmly present facts that dismantled the attack without a single rise in his tone. Over time, people noticed. His calmness didn't just protect his peace, it magnified his presence. The manager who once tried to provoke him began avoiding direct conflict because he realized his weapons had no effect. Calmness became Jacob's silent dominance. When you practice calm under pressure, three powerful things happen. You disarm your enemy. No one knows how to fight someone who refuses to be baited. They lose their grip when you don't react. You command silent respect. Even those who disagree with you are forced to admire your discipline. Control impresses more than chaos. You preserve your energy. Anger burns your spirit. Calmness protects it. The one who saves energy always outlasts the one who wastes it in fire. Stoicism teaches that life will never stop testing you. People will insult, disappoint, betray, and try to pull you down. But the true measure of strength is not whether you fight. It is whether you remain unmoved. Calmness does not mean weakness. It means you have mastered yourself. And self-mastery is the highest form of power. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, breathe, remind yourself their attempt is proof of their weakness, not yours. Do not give them control over your mind. Instead, let your stillness be the loudest answer, because nothing unsettles the world more than a person who cannot be shaken. And that is when people stop testing you and start respecting you. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 7. Withdraw when disrespected. Let's talk about one of the most overlooked yet most powerful responses to disrespect: withdrawal. Most people believe that the way to earn respect is through confrontation, arguments, or dramatic displays of anger. But the truth is, nothing speaks louder than quiet absence. Epictetus said, "Detach with dignity. Not everyone deserves your explanation." And this is the essence of self-respect. When someone shows you they do not value you, the greatest statement you can make is to stop showing up where you are not honored. Think about it. Disrespect thrives on reaction. When someone belittles you, mocks you, or dismisses you, what they expect is your outrage. They want you to defend yourself endlessly, to beg for fairness, to lower yourself to their level. But when you withdraw, calmly, without drama, you cut off their supply. You tell them without words, "I don't need this, and I don't need you." That silence pierces deeper than any counterattack ever could. I once knew a woman named Claire who was constantly overlooked in her friend group. She would give rides, make plans, show up for everyone, but when she needed them, they ignored her. At first, she confronted them, arguing for her place, demanding change. But the disrespect continued. Finally, she stopped arguing. She simply stopped showing up. No announcements, no accusations, just quiet withdrawal. Within weeks, her absence became the loudest voice in the room. The very friends who ignored her started reaching out, wondering where she was. Why? Because absence creates awareness. People rarely notice value when it's present, but they feel it sharply when it's gone. Withdrawal has three key powers. It preserves your dignity. You don't have to explain your worth to those determined not to see it. Stepping back keeps your energy intact. It forces reflection. When you are no longer available, people must face the void they created. Your silence makes them confront their own behavior. It filters relationships. Those who truly value you will notice your absence and seek to repair the bond. Those who don't were never meant to stay. Stoicism reminds us that we cannot control how others treat us, but we can always control our response. Withdrawal is not weakness, it is wisdom. It says, I choose peace over proving myself. It doesn't mean you stop caring, but it does mean you stop sacrificing your dignity for people who don't deserve it. So the next time you face disrespect, remember this: you don't owe anyone an argument, a defense, or an explanation. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away quietly and let your absence echo louder than your presence ever did. Because when you detach with dignity, two things happen. You protect your peace and you force others to confront the reality of losing you. That is not just silence, it is power. Number 8, keep growing beyond them. Let's talk about one of the most liberating truths in life. Growth is the greatest form of revenge. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Progress is the only true revenge against envy." Nothing silences critics, competitors, or those who undervalued you like your continued evolution. Because while they stay the same, locked in pettiness, you rise into places they cannot follow. When someone disrespects you, dismisses you, or treats you as if you are replaceable, the most powerful response is not to argue, not to prove, not to demand recognition. It is to grow. Growth makes arguments irrelevant. Growth turns doubt into disbelief. Growth transforms their underestimation into regret. And the beauty of growth is this: it requires no announcement. You simply keep moving forward, and one day, the very people who overlooked you will look up and realize you've gone where they cannot reach. I once heard of a man named Daniel who worked tirelessly in a company where his efforts were ignored. His colleagues took credit for his ideas, his boss passed him over for promotions, and for years he fought for recognition. But then he stopped fighting. He stopped seeking approval from those who refused to give it. Instead, he poured that energy into his own skills, his own learning, his own mastery. He quietly built himself up until he no longer needed their stage. Eventually, another company noticed him, hired him, and placed him in a position far higher than his former peers could ever imagine. Suddenly, those who had ignored him spoke his name with respect. Why? Because he kept growing beyond them. Growth is a mirror. It reflects their stagnation. When you evolve, you force people to confront the fact that they stayed the same while you moved ahead. And that stirs something powerful inside them. Sometimes it's admiration, sometimes it's envy, but either way, it's recognition of your value. Here's what makes growth unstoppable. It is internal first. You don't grow for applause, you grow for strength. And that strength cannot be taken away. It makes you untouchable. No insult, no doubt, no rejection can stick when you're too busy evolving to care. It rewrites your worth. People may try to define you by who you were, but when you keep progressing, You prove that no one has the authority to limit your future. The Stoics understood that revenge is never about hurting others. It is about mastering yourself so completely that their pettiness becomes irrelevant. When you continue to rise, they are left behind by their own choice. You don't have to push them down. You simply have to keep climbing. So if you want people to value you, don't waste energy chasing their approval. Invest that energy into becoming more skilled, more disciplined, more wise, more unshakable. Because growth is the one thing they cannot control, cannot deny, and cannot ignore. When you rise in silence, their envy becomes the proof that you've already won. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.